This is the first quiz. Dr. Wallace just failed. This is not a microphone. What you say? It's for Coach's cool camera. So you can talk here, you can talk it over here, around here, and the sound will remain the same on the camera. Isn't that cool? It's very cool. It makes you feel like Oprah, kinda, but it's very cool. Thank you all for coming. We are chatting today with this college conversation about the 400 policies, which is just, I think, life-changing every time you talk about policies. So we're going to go over a review process where we've been to get us to today, where we're going to go, and then I'm going to go through all the policy numbers that we had comments on, and then you can ask questions as always and anything like that. Does this sound okay for y'all? Okay. All right, so here's to review. Last spring, we had the opportunity, I say we, it was all of us, to provide input, commentary on our 400 policies. The 400 policies mainly have to do with faculty and staff, okay? And through Wendy's good work and Lennon's good work, we posted those 400 policies up for people to comment on. Comments came in, and we closed the comment period, and that happened about 2 weeks before graduation. So we didn't have the time to go back and say, this is what was said. So that's what we're doing today. Some folks looked up the 400 policies when school started just this year and said, hey, nope, they didn't make any changes. We inputted our comments and nobody made any changes. That is correct. We did not make any changes on those 400 policies. The reason why we didn't is I felt it was necessary, as did Marla and everybody else, to have the college conversations to say to you all and to say to us, here are the comments and this is what we're going to do before we change it, okay? So if you had heard that, oh my gosh, they didn't change the policies and they're just going to take them as they were, that is not true, okay? The process going forward, I'm going to review the policies today, the 400s with you, and then Jasmine and I are going to sit down and put the 400s together with the comments that were taken, that we can do, that are legal. Some of them we can't change at all. And then we'll put that all together. At the same time, we will be putting those policies into the handbooks, both the faculty and the staff, okay? The reason I say that is what I'd like to see with our handbooks, both with the faculty and the staff handbook or the employee handbook, is that, and here's just an example, when we all see the section on nepotism, okay, you'll read that section on nepotism, and then underneath that section in the handbook, you'll have cite for policy number XYZ for UA Pulaski Tech, and then it will all be aligned there. So you'll have the section on nepotism, you'll have the policy number where that is addressed, and then in the policy itself, we're going to have the policy statement and then any process that supports that policy. So we're not going to have policy and then administrative rules in two separate places, okay? Does that make sense? It just makes it a lot easier. Okay, so that's where we're going on that. We covered that, Jasmine and I. We're going to start, Jasmine and I are going to start on the 400s, I think, on Monday or Tuesday, the following week? Okay, so in 2 weeks, we're going to start cleaning up the 400s. From that work, we've got to send them back to UA Legal. They'll look at it again, give us the 2 thumbs up, and then we're done with the 400s. We will start the process for the 500s like September, the week after we come back of Labor Day weekend. I'm going to work with Coach next week and we're going to get the 500s ready to post. So when we come back after Labor Day weekend, I'll send an email out to everybody and say they're up, here's the comment time, and we start on the 500s. Okay, the 500s will do the same as the 400s, and we have to do all of our policies and get this all done by December before we go home for holiday break. Okay, so it's a tight timeline, but I'm very confident we can do that. A bit of good news in all of this, we have other UA institutions looking to us as a model, and UA Legal just told us that this week, and I thought, well, that's really nice. So we're doing it the right way, my friends, we are. Is there a lot of work to be done? You bet, but we're no strangers to that. So any questions on any of that before I start on all of this? Okay. On the other reason, another thing I wanted to clear up is during college at convocation, I mentioned that Marla and I were going to be having these college conversations on the policies in September. And then voila, we had the first one this week on Tuesday and now this one. And we're sorry we had to cancel on Wednesday. We were supposed to be down here on Wednesday. The only reason we did that is because we had to be in the same room at the same time with David and Tara as we were dropping students. Okay, that was the only reason. So the reason why we had to do it this week is I met with Jasmine after Staff Senate, and that was a week ago, I think. And at Staff Senate, our colleagues put together a timeline to develop the staff handbook, okay? When I looked at their timeline and what we were trying to do to have the college conversations, it would have put that timeline for the staff handbook to get out of whack. So chatted with Jazz and said, okay, should we have it beforehand? And yes, we needed to have it beforehand in September. So that's why we're doing it this week, okay? Any questions on any of that? All right. In all of this too, UA system has done an audit on UA Pulaski Tech, which is great. And the audit has been primarily to look at policies. And that is a wonderful thing because they're catching things we have missed so far and what we have to line up. And Marla mostly is going to talk to you all about the one major policy finding, but we've got some others that I want to tell you about in all of this. So we'll get to that, but I want to start, and I'm going to sit down on this because it's just easier for me to read all of this stuff seated. And again, if you've got any questions on any of this, let me know, okay? Because I've got all the policies with me and we can be real detailed if you'd like. So that's no big deal. With the 400s, there were comments that were provided that dealt with other policies as well, and that's okay. So I'm just going to go over those with you real quick. One of the comments which makes perfect sense and is looking out for our students is that our employee and travel procedures have to be delineated, and we've got to make sure that we've got those procedures for both employees and students cross-referenced with our business policies, okay? So, and that's our 300s. So that was a good idea. Wording was huge and was a reoccurring comment on everything. So when you'd see president in our policy, we have to change that to chancellor, all of that kind of thing. So thank you all for catching wording, and we'll get that all cleaned up. On our policies, there were comments on the policies themselves, on the structure. And as I mentioned to you, we'll have the policy statement, and then we'll have the process or the rule to that policy all on one page. Also on that policy sheet or document, we'll have the originator of that policy. And at this point, a lot of it has to do with just administration, so we can pick on the chancellor and chancellor can go on there, or if it's student services, we'll put student services on there. But you'll have the originator of the policy, the date it will be effective on there, that kind of information. So we always have that as historical piece, and then we know, okay? Comments on policy, are you ready? Because here we go. Comments on policy 235.1.1. It was smoking and e-cigarettes. There were no comments. There was one put in, but there was no comment on it. What we had chatted with our colleagues on Tuesday about was vaping. Vaping came up on that. So what we'll have to do is go back and look at that policy and make sure that smoking is included as our e-cigarettes in the term vaping, okay? Policy number 290.1.1, and no, I don't have reoccurring nightmares about these policy numbers. Weapons. There were no comments about weapons. And again, with weapons, we've got to remember we have to follow state law with enhanced concealed carry. I think that's mine. As well as a host of other weapons you cannot bring to campus. But there were no comments. Policy number 310.1.1, that's our investment policy. Somebody submitted it, but they didn't have a comment. And our investment policy, our investments primarily for the college and for students are made through our foundation, okay? And I don't know if you all know this, but our foundation accounts this last year made interest of $140,000 through the UA Foundation. That $140,000 will go through to student scholarships. So the investments of our money through the UA Foundation is doing really well at this point. Our policy 335.1.1, standards of conduct, okay? This policy was commented on about alcohol being served on campus, and we can't serve alcohol on campus. And I'm looking at culinary. Here's one thing we have to remember. You have our college, and then you have the University of Arkansas Pulaski Technical College Foundation, okay? The foundation can serve alcohol. They have to go through a very prescripted process with a bunch of permits, Karen knows, about serving alcohol, both the foundation and anybody coming in to rent our place and they want to serve alcohol. That is very controlled and very scripted, okay? So that when people see like the golf tournament, they think, oh, that's UA Pulaski Tech, that's the college, that's the foundation sponsoring that, okay? So it is true, as a college, we cannot serve alcohol, okay? With culinary, we have to work through foundation at particular events. When we have the dinners open for folks to come in, they can bring their own bottle, but we do not serve alcohol on that. Is that helpful, y'all? Okay. And then we're going to start in on 405.1.1, but Marla, I'm going to let you talk about the audit since that relates to 405.1.1.
If you saw the memo that came out, this pertains to faculty members, that we no longer have a personal day. That was an audit finding when the UA system audited our HR protocol, particularly our leave. They audited staff and faculty. And when you have an audit finding, we have to speak at the next board meeting, our chancellor does, of what have you done to resolve this finding. So once we receive the finding, we have to immediately act because it's an audit. So we could not continue the personal day this semester because we received the audit finding this semester. So it's just not leave that's approved in the UA system. And so I was asked by faculty last time, well, what do I do when I need to do certain things? Well, we'll have a class absent form. If your class is covered, you need to do something, work that out with your chair, make sure your instruction goes on, and we'll just continue as other UA system schools do. We'll function that way. The other question that came up about faculty leave is when you take a sick day, like you're ill, if you miss the entire day, you must put in 8 hours. The reason being is during your contract time by the state of Arkansas, you are considered a full-time employee. Now, if you miss a class and come back in, you take the sick leave for that amount of time. But an entire day, you're accruing benefits as a 40-hour-a-week employee. So I'm not talking about 40 hours a week. I'm simply saying that's the way it is accrued. So if you are out the entire day, it is an 8-hour leave that you take. If you miss a class, you put in what you've missed. You come back for your office hours, that's all fine. And just work that out with your chair and dean. But that was one thing that was concerning in the audit. And so we can't wait and go ahead and have personal days this year once we've been notified that that's an audit finding. Are there any questions? Yes.
Yes.
8 to 4:30. I mean, just whatever equates the full 8 hours for a state employee, because you accrue sick leave as a full-time employee, and so if you have sick leave, you take that entire day, you put in your 8 hours. Just yeah. Right, and so you would think if I'm teaching at 10 until 6, I'd put in 10 to 6, but truly for that sick day, you just put in operating business hours of the institution. That's all that's needed. Any other questions on faculty leave, faculty sick leave, how that works? Dr. Matute?
Yes, so if I want out of campus for a professional activity, my classes are live classes. But while I'm away, I'm engaging the students online on Blackboard. We are doing a quiz or we are doing a discussion on Blackboard. Would that still be considered to be absent?
For professional development, no. We have a professional development form that we fill out that you submit to your dean, and then that's brought to me, and it has on there, these are my classes, here's what I did for instruction. So if you're doing professional development, professional service, I ask first and foremost that we take care of our students and that plan is approved in your chain of communication.
A good example is for a personal day to take time for observing a religious holiday, okay? And so what we have to do, and we'll have the same kind of process as Marla's talking about for leave, that faculty have to fill that out, a form out, and indicate I'm leaving 8 hours or 5 hours to observe a religious holiday. The college has to make reasonable accommodations for our colleagues, our faculty colleagues who would like to take something like that. That would be a personal day or a personal period of time off. But again, as Marla said, if that happens, then the faculty member has to make accommodations for that class. Either bring another faculty member in and teach that class if the person's gone, something, but the class has to be covered, okay? There has to be some kind of accommodation for that class too. So, questions on that? Another one that was in the audit finding, and you guys will hoot about this, is our weather policy. In our policies, and I think this policy was probably drafted in 1901, but it says for our weather closures that we close when the governor basically closed down the state, and that's not true. It's Margaret waking up at 3:30, calling Tim Jones, watching the weather, and then I say, yeah, we're not not meeting today, and then Tim starts pushing the buttons to do the rave alerts, and we're closed. So that policy doesn't match up with our practice, and so we've got to fix that one. But and voting is another one. Our policy does not match the UA policy on voting. So allowing all of us colleagues to do what we need to do to go vote. So, but when you have audits like that, you guys, this is where the chancellor's job comes in and my responsibilities. When you have those audit findings like that for policies, we have to make those policy changes immediately. And that's the chancellor's call. We don't get to take them through shared governance or have comment or anything. It's done. And legally, we have to do that. So if anybody wants to go with me to the Board of Trustees meeting and explain all of that to them in September, raise your hand. It won't be bad. It'll be just fine. We don't. We're going to have to make one up. We gotta develop one.
Found all this out.
Yeah, we've got to develop one.
Now, we do have the professional development form.
Yeah,
We do have
we've got
that. You get it from your dean and chair, and I can send it back out to the deans. It went out last year, and that went out through Senate, the professional development. Like Dr. Matute was talking about, if you leave for a professional conference, there's a form for your courses being covered. So I can send it to you.
But we
your dean.
have to make one up for personal time.
We're probably going to use the same.
We'll mock something up. It'll be all right.
Ideally, we'll make it electronic. That's
Yeah.
what we want to get to.
So here we go on the rest of the policies. 405.1.1, the term termination for convenience, okay? This is a UA system term for termination. And our termination of convenience, which we do have in a policy, we have to make sure that exactly matches what is in the UA system policy, okay? Termination for convenience is basically an individual is terminated at will, okay? It can be for any reason and at any time, okay? But we have to make sure that's documented correctly in the policies, all right? Successive appointments, this was a comment. We have to have an aligned process that follows the UA system. And again, with that, Marla and the crew have been looking, and we've got that hopefully cleaned up. Academic freedom. This was a huge comment by many of our colleagues. And it particularly pertained to section A, B, and C in this policy. Our academic freedom at UA Pulaski Tech has to match the UA system. And for our academic freedom, we have to use AAUP, okay? And specifically, it is my recommendation that we use the 1940 AAUP Statement of Principles on Academic Freedom in our policy. That is, and if you all know AAUP for faculty, that is the standard for academic freedom, okay? And we need to include that statement from AAUP in our policy, okay? It is a great definition of what academic freedom is, but it also indicates that faculty have a responsibility to uphold that academic freedom, okay? So we need to, yeah, Jazz.
Which policy are you referencing for academic freedom?
It is in 405 1.1. At least there was a comment on that in 405 1.1, okay? Whether we put it there or not, but the comment came in through that policy. There were many comments on this policy as far as faculty being credentialed. And again, I've got to give it up to all of you and Marla, everybody who's been involved in ensuring that our faculty credentials are documented as per HLC, okay? So we're well on our way on that, and they meet the HLC criteria. FEPs, this was another comment within this policy. FEPs should be aligned to the contract and specify duties of the faculty member. I would concur on that. Appointments for faculty should be recommended first by the chair, and then here's our chain of command. Chair, dean, it goes to Marla as provost, and then she approves all of that, and then I sign off on it last. That's the chain of command, and that's what we have to put in our policy. I think in the past there was concerns that, well, somebody was appointed by Karen, and they just filled out an FEP or a new hiring form or whatever, and it does not work that way, okay? And we have a very good process in place, and we will continue that process. We just have to document it all in our policy. Yeah. In the contract, too, as Marla said, our faculty contracts, the structure of those have changed to include exactly what our faculty colleagues are teaching and doing. And that's huge. It's what we have to do for HLC, and plus it's just great operating procedure, okay? So we're ahead of the game on that. Appointment, non-reappointment, and dismissal process of anybody, faculty or staff, must follow UA system, and we will do that. Include in there are options, or I should say opportunities, where on dismissals or in grievances, let me start off with dismissals for faculty. Post-termination appeal can be reviewed, okay? And that process can go to Dr. Bobbitt, okay? So we have to outline that in our policy, and we don't have that presently in UAPTC. On grievances, there were lots of comments on involving, particularly with faculty and staff, having a colleague committee review the grievance and provide decision on that. That, I think, is a wonderful idea, but here's what we have to remember if we choose to go that route, and many colleges have that, okay? Many colleges have that. That process and that opportunity is only as good and ethical and serves the purpose as the confidentiality of the members on that committee. Because I'll tell you what, the first time we do that and committee members leave that appeal or grievance and goes out and says, well, did you know that Bentley was doing this and it was really this? And, you know, this. And that will sink that process immediately because it doesn't follow the professional, ethical, and confidentiality requirements of that process to work the way it is intended to work for the colleague, okay? So just be ready for that. I think we can put that in our policies. People have asked, well, what happens, you know, if Karen's on that committee and she's the one who does this? Here's my recommendation, is that Karen is never allowed to sit on another committee, and that situation she was involved in is written up and put in her personnel file. Done. We cannot have a process like that to serve our folks, to have it denigrated by this. Okay? Let's see. Yeah, we just talked about that. Here's the provost. This was a comment about newly created jobs. There were comments on that. Let me tell you that the provost, the CFO, and the chancellor all approve the newly created jobs. And what we tend to look at, and Marla can tell you too, is on any newly created job, or if a repost comes through, we do it for reposts of jobs. Is that one job still needed? How is it strategically influencing and impacting our students in this college? Is there a possibility that job isn't needed? And we can say no. Or can that job be changed in any way? So at the end of the day, that position, whether it's new or it's one coming through the pipeline again, it all comes down to us to look at that, okay? And we don't do that just in my office by ourselves. We know the situations with whoever's including that position or bringing it up the pipeline, and that's how we look at that. Any questions on that, you guys? Because I think sometimes, again, it might have occurred in the past that somebody's just signed it and it's gone through, and it isn't that way anymore, okay? Here was another comment on this policy that had lots of comments. And I want to say to you all right now, as I did on Tuesday, you have this right. You have this right to go to the HR office and look at your HR file. You have that right. Now, when you do that, you have to do it with an HR person there in the room, but you have that right to look at your own personnel file, okay? If you want to make copies of aspects of that file, you can, but you cannot take anything out of that original file. That file's got to stay in the office. You can make a copy of it, okay? But you have every right to go look at your personnel file, okay? Questions on that? Apparently that was because there were numerous comments about that, okay? Okay, so here's the next one. 405.1.2, which is staff hiring, dismissal, and evaluation. Comments about word changes like, again, president, chancellor, that kind of thing. Dismissal, suspension, and progressive discipline, we have to follow UA system on that. So that was the big one there. Policy number 405.1.3 is conflict resolution. We need to make title changes, specifically on line 29 on that. Grievance process, a written grievance process, Jazz, we have to document that on lines 56 through 64. There was questions and comments about grievance officer. Who would be the grievance officer at this institution? What I am recommending that we put into the policy is it is our CFO, who is our grievance officer, okay? In that particular case, it would be Tara. She is over HR, and she has a very, very good grasp of the UA system policies on all of this, and would be, I think, our top person to be an unbiased and very good grievance officer, okay? So that's my recommendation on that one, and I'm sticking to it. We talked about faculty panels because that came up. Another comment that was in 405.1.3 was during appeals and grievance appeals, comment of we would like to have attorneys in the room during that appeal process. That is not allowed by UA system. What is allowed is if you would like to confer with your attorney before that appeals process, that's great. but in the appeals or grievance process, that is an internal situation, and attorneys are not invited to attend. Now, again, with a post-termination situation, attorneys are involved in that. That's allowed. So I wanted to make comment on that because we had comments submitted. Faculty appeals will go to the provost. Any comment on that, provost? No?
Any questions?
Any questions on faculty appeals going to the provost? Staff appeals will go to the CFO. Any questions on that? That was it on that one. Again, I think there was concern, and rightfully so, in our policies, where does it go, and then who's really the grievance officer and all of that, and we've got that figured out. Policy 405.1.4, hiring of foreign nationals. There were no comments on that. Policy 405.2.1, there were no comments on that either. Policy 405.4.1, employment periods, okay? Again, there were title changes that need to be done. PAFs, when we talked about that previously, but have to be approved through the chain of command. And this was another big comment on this, and I think people's questions are very valid on this, but termination for convenience, okay, is not the same for termination for financial exigency, okay? Termination for convenience is termination at will. Termination for financial exigency, and I can hardly say that word, means this. One, that this college has to go before the Board of Trustees, okay, and have that designation. We are in basically financial hardship. We're in financial exigency. And because of that, then the chancellor, we can put into process that terminations can begin because of that, okay? Those two types of terminations are not the same, and nor should they be confused, okay? So I'm going to use Marla's example. I could save money if I fire Marla. And I can dub that as financial exigency. No, you can't. No, you can't. Okay? That is not true. Yes, ma'am.
Can you help me understand, if there is a termination for convenience, what is the need for the other termination?
The need for the other termination is that if this institution is in financial hardship, okay, we are at a budget level that will not support all of the employees in this institution, then the chancellor has to go before the Board of Trustees, present that financial situation that then allows the chancellor to come back and start the process of terminating people to keep the place going, basically.
But if you terminate for convenience,
Termination for convenience is something, and again, I'm not going to terminate Marla for convenience to save money. I'm going to terminate Marla for convenience because guess what? She just mouthed off for the 4th time to a community member. She's been written up 3 times on it and has failed. So because of that, I'm going to terminate her for convenience. See the difference? Now, if I'm a manager at this institution and I'm thinking, oh, I can save money and try to do it, terminate her, you cannot do that. You cannot do that.
It also comes
Okay.
into play during the appeals process. You want to appeal the reason you were terminated.
Yeah.
There will be a burden of proof on the institution that we were financial.
Exigency. Okay. Other questions on that? We will put that in policy, yeah. I mean,
We'll
and
explain the terms.
we're explaining the terms to you guys, and here's the last caveat in all of this, is that any termination at this institution has to be reviewed prior to that termination taking place by the chancellor. Nobody can get terminated here without me seeing it, and it's not me seeing it 5 minutes before it happens. Or if that person comes, oh, we forgot. No. So that has to, again, I've got to go back and make sure that's clear. Jasmine's going, you got it in there. Thank you, Jazz. Because we are not going to mess around with people's lives, and especially when we are looking at separating an individual from this institution. Okay? So I kind of get riled up about that, but we have to be, one, very legal, and two, very respectful of the situation. Very respectful.
Also explains the verbiage in the faculty contracts were different this year. That was the reflection of delineating each type of separation.
Policy 405.4.2 is on restructuring. Mostly the comments on that was all on title changes, any type of restructuring, as we all know, because we did it this last year, has to follow UA system personnel policies, and they did. I think we have to make sure that 405.2 needs to be rewritten to align with UA 405.2, Jazz. That was a very good comment. The next policy was 410.1.1, nepotism. So there were no comments on that, but we got to make sure people follow that too. Policy 420.1.1 is the leave policy for academic and other non-classified employees. Very good comment that was submitted is that the leave policies need to be separated into a faculty side and a staff side. Because right now, I'm telling you, you look at that and it's muddy at best. And so we're going to separate, and I say we because Jasmine and I will structure all of this, and you'll see it again, but you'll have a faculty and staff side of that. Our FMLA, we have to ensure that it follows UA system, and it does. Lines 26 through 29 were an issue, Jazz. If you put that down, we'll have this. We also have to make sure we follow UA system policy on court and jury leave. Okay? Because I looked at that in our policy, and it's a little more, I think, stringent than UA system policy. So we have to look at the flexibility and, again, the alignment to UA system to make sure it's correct. Then on line 107, again, we have to follow UA system policy. On lines 21 through 61, and had lots of comments on this, our colleagues felt that it was reflective of a more gotcha. And the gotcha is, what do you do when you're sick and you need to file leave? And what I am proposing to all of us as colleagues is, in that section, we put in a process of, as a faculty member, this is what you have to do to file leave. So if you're sick and it's 6 o'clock in the morning, this is when you file sick leave, this is what you have to do. You've got to call your chair, you've got to notify your dean, you've got to make sure that if you're teaching, there's something posted on the door, boom, 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 so we know, okay? Staff, no different. So if it's the chancellor and she's sick, I call Tina Kerrigan at 4:30, and then the text goes to this one and Tara. They know what I have to do is file leave, and then I have to do my leave thing on the computer, okay? That context and that structure I just described to you, I think is very different from what is stated in the policy. What is stated in the policy is more of a gotcha. If you don't file your leave and you're sick, this is what's going to happen to you. Very different, okay? And my deal is I would much prefer, and I think many of you would prefer, to have this is the step I have to follow. Now, if I don't follow that step, then we go to the accountability of the dean coming in and saying, Marla, you've been gone for 6 days. You haven't called, you haven't emailed, nothing. And this is the consequence, okay? There's also, and I speak of days, there was some confusion in comments about the number of days a faculty member in particular, doesn't have to call in. And I know, and we've got to check this legally. People were saying it was either 3 or 5 days. My deal is, we'll follow what is legal, but as a professional educator, regardless if you are staff or faculty, when you're sick, here's what you got to do. A, B, C, D. And we do that because 1, we're professional educators. 2, if we're faculty, we're doing right by our students because they're getting served by whoever, okay? And 3, if we're faculty, our colleagues know where we're at and can help accommodate what we have to do if we're gone, okay? So we're gonna change that section up in that policy, okay? Policy number 420.3.1 is FMLA. There were no comments on that. Policy 425.5.1, retirement systems. No comments on that. Apparently we all are happy with our retirement and want to retire someday. Policy number 430.1.1 is self-insured major medical programs. There are no comments on that. Policy 435.1.1 is salary levels for summer faculty employment. There were no comments on that. Policy number 440.1.1 is professional development and tuition waivers. Again, we had comments on this, and we need to separate this policy into 2 sections. One section for employees taking courses at UAPTC, and then number 2, a section for employees taking courses at other UA institutions. So again, that makes it very clear. Other comments, which I thought were great and we need to do, is language that is included for professional development needs to be also tied to evaluations on all of us. So if the chancellor is going someplace and doing PD, then that PD experience needs to be also placed in her evaluation. That would be no different for Bentley's, Karen's, or anybody's, okay? That has to be reflected in our evaluations, which is right. Graduate and undergraduate courses need to be delineated too. We have to separate that. So any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. Policy 490.1, drug and alcohol-free community. I heard a laugh. We have to make sure, and there were good comments on this, we have to make sure that we have a student section on this. Apparently we had some folks who thought there wasn't one in the student services related to students, so we've got to check that out. The other, and this applies to some of us, in our present policy, it says that all employees, now I'm going to read this a couple times, all employees deemed to be in a safety-sensitive position have to be drug tested. Now, what's not there is the definition of a safety-sensitive position. So at the 10,000 foot level, you think, okay, safety sensitive, that would be our police. Yes, that has to be delineated. Okay. Then you think, now we're drug testing students here on this campus, aren't we? What programs are they in? Here's your pop quiz. Technical programs. Allied health. Well then, are those employees in those areas going to be drug tested too? Safety sensitive, correct? So we have to delineate that in our policies. And the reason I say that is we're drug testing kids, students in welding, in allied health, but are we doing the same? Is it required that our instructors do the same thing? Legally, is that an issue? Now you guys get to think about what I think about at 1:30 in the morning. Sir?
We've had lots of students bring that up.
Yeah.
And I point blank told my students, hey, I'll go when they say go.
Yeah.
They haven't said go yet.
So we're going to have to get that in policy. The other thing we have to do, but it's a fair question and it's a legal question, and we have to delineate that in how we do that. So that is something that had comments, and we need to address. Employees, here's another, this came in a couple times too. Employees and students who may be under the influence, who do they get contacted by? So if you have a student who you think may be under the influence, who do we call? We call the police, and we call Michelle, Dean of Students. If it is an employee colleague who we believe is under the influence here at school, again, we call police and we bring HR in, okay? So that's that. No.
I was told that if I was suspecting any funny smells,
Mm-hmm.
that I was not supposed to comment at all.
Comment to the student.
Student?
No, I mean, to anybody.
To comment?
Oh,
Oh. No, that's where it's, as again, professional educators, it might be smell, but you've got to look at the whole context of what's going on with that student, or yeah, you might not see anything, but you might. So again,
West Campus, you saw stuff.
yeah, again, it's, if you're in that situation and you smell something, and then you're also looking at behavior, hearing things, is speech slurred, are things adding up? What I would do if I'm concerned, again, I would call, if it's a student, I'd call Michelle and I'd call the police and get another set of eyes and ears on that, okay? Because it's always helpful to have a team evaluation of that rather than one. Questions on that, Jazz?
Well, not on that, I have a concern about embedding a student-related policy into a faculty.
We're not going to, but we'd have, the comment just came in here, so what we're going to have to do is make sure that student side is over on the student services, okay? Because we had lots of comments on, I'm just reporting back the way they reported here, to be. Dr. Matute, sir?
So if I'm in class, and then you guys saw a student do some of this sign for two balls, so, and you say we have to involve the security and the dean of students affairs. So what do I do? Stop that class or that lab and then try to go, or do I wait until after that class and that lab before that process, before involving the police and involving the dean of students affairs?
If there's a danger, if
If
you see a
it's a
student who
is-
is, you have flammables going and you can tell the student is not quite all,
Then you,
sober, for lack of a better term, that day, then I think you need to contact your chair or the closest person to help you. You know, just say, hey, can you watch my class for a second, and go contact and let your chair or Michelle immediately help you. And I do recommend too, if you don't have Michelle's number in your cell phone or
You put it in.
then to get it in there. But yeah, if it's an immediate safety concern, I would want you to deal with it immediately.
And the other thing you can do too is, and you all know your students, if you feel that that particular student is a danger to class and to themselves, and you don't want to leave class, you want to watch that student, then you get another student as a runner, and say, listen, I need you to go to and bring them back here ASAP.
Don't say why.
Don't say why, but this is what I need you to do, okay? And if you have that ability to do that, okay? First and foremost, you've got to keep yourself and your other students very, very safe, okay?
We talked before in our division, our drug testing policy, that there should be a way, if we have a student that we feel is under the influence of something, that we should be able to test them. Is that anything, we do the random drug testing, but
Legally, you can't. But what you can do, if you can remove the student if the student, again, is disruptive, is a danger to themselves, or causing danger to the rest of the class. But you're going to have to be able to document that. You just can't say, well, Marla's acting goofy. No, if she is causing a disruption, and why she's causing the disruption, then yes, then you can remove that student from class. But we can't say, well, hey, guess what? You're going to get drug tested too. Okay? Appreciate the thought, but no, can't do it.
And I think we go back to the smell, the issue. I mean, if that's the only indicator and there's no behavioral issues, we have to also be cognizant that there's there's prescription drug use now that could cause that, so I just want to make sure you couple behavior with, that might be where that had somehow got interpreted down the communication line, that you couldn't contact anybody with a smell. There's days have changed, so.
Yes, sir.
Now on that, little clarification on that, because if I smell the stuff, within minutes, I will be ill, and I will be in the bathroom tossing my cookies and stuff like that. So, there's something in with me that makes me ill. If other instructors are like that, at that point, is that a disruption enough that they need to be, even if it is documented as it's a smell and there's nothing else, is that classified as a disruption? Because it's going to disrupt class if I get sick. All I say is that's a fact. That's going to happen with me. I don't know if anybody else is that.
Somebody with poor hygiene can be smell that much to make
Right.
it feel
Mhm.
like
I got the drug dog right here.
Yeah.
The drug dog.
He is on.
Well, I don't know how long all of y'all been teaching, but I've been teaching so long that I've had high students in my
Yeah.
class, just came in for smoking marijuana. I have had drunk students in my class, and I dealt with it in different ways.
Yeah.
With the high student, at the end of the class, I said, if you're gonna come to this class, you need to come sober, because I can't teach you when you're stoned. And he did. That's how I dealt with it. And the drunk student, she was also a cutter, so she was having some emotional issues. And I talked to her about, we have a counselor. This is her phone number. Do you want me to go with you to her? Do you need to sit and talk about something? What's going on? Because it wouldn't have helped either one of them to get kicked out of
Yeah.
school.
No.
They weren't being disruptive in my class. Okay? They were hurting themselves.
Well,
But they weren't holding the blowtorch.
They
No,
weren't on the ball
blowtorch.
torch. No, they were
but,
sitting
and
there
here's the other
burning it
thing you
off.
guys have got to think about too. I come to your class, and I've got patchouli/hemp perfume on, because I think it's great. You think I've been doing this, and then you come up to me and say exactly what you just. If you're going to be smoking dope. Don't be coming to my class. I'm not smoking dope. Here's my perfume. And guess what? You just offended me. I might sue you. Do you see both sides of the coin? So when I say, and when Marla says, if you're witnessing something, get the team to help you look at this. And don't try to make all the decision on your own, because if you make a bad decision, it might come back to bite you, okay? Because I want you all to be safe in all of this too, okay? So look at the situation, think carefully and clearly, think about what you know about that student, and then call in for the reinforcements, okay? Arkansas, policy 490.2, non-discrimination, there were no comments on that. This is the last biggie. Policy 490.3, personal appearance. Lots of comments on this, okay? Your esteemed provost and I, here's our recommendation. We want to change this policy to professional attire. We are recommending that professional attire be defined by each school you're in, okay? So, because we're down here and we're in culinary, guess what? You have professional attire, right? Yeah, Carrie, whoops. Technical sciences. And Primo, if you all know Primo, he was in Tuesday, and so he had just gotten out of welding lab. So he's sitting in there in his jeans, and he had his khaki shirt on with his other shirt underneath and his hat on, steel toe boot. I said, I'm going to use Primo as an example. You guys, good examples too. Primo's got on his department shirt, just like guys do. He had on his steel-toed boots, his hat. He has to wear a hat for a reason. He doesn't want his hair catching on fire under, all this stuff. That's professional attire. Okay? So we want to be, and I think all of us want to be, professional and look like we belong to this place. And that's how we're going to do it. Okay? You all know, and I know, you'll see me wearing jeans around on Friday. I did not wear them today, but you'll see me, particularly in the summer, wearing jeans on Friday afternoons with my Adidas tennis shoes. Would I wear that same attire going to chamber executive meeting like I did yesterday, or the Capitol? No. Okay? We just know better. Okay? I don't know how you put that into writing other than we just know better. Okay, so that's that. Casual, yeah, and there are a number of schools and I've looked at institutions in Arkansas that do casual Fridays. Some are more prescriptive as to what is worn. Like they go, if you wear jeans, everybody throws $5 in the pot if you wear jeans, and then that money goes to designated organizations in the community. At my old place where I worked in Oklahoma, we did that. And I think at that time it was $2. If you want to wear jeans, you threw $2 in, and it went to wherever. So again, it's just how we are able to manage it as professionals. I have confidence that we will be able to manage that. Policy 490.4, safety at the college, no comments there. We must feel pretty safe. 490.5, workplace violence, there were no comments on that particular policy. And then 490.6 was the copyright policy, and there were no comments there. There's your policies as 400s. Any other comments on that? Oh, I knew. Man, I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat lunch.
I gotta say, I feel pretty safe, other than not being able to communicate and use our
That's all done. That, Glover's got that done. Is it not working down here yet?
Our service,
It's actually went down. It's actually, the actual service is worse than it was.
Did you all tell Bentley?
It's gotten worse since he announced it. Yeah. I've been
But
meaning
is it done?
to call and
I
say,
don't know.
I don't know. So have you contacted Glover?
I will, I've been meaning to, but it's just, there's like one spot in this whole building you cell phone. Usually, I can walk out of my office and as soon as I
Okay,
got the corridor, I can bar.
here's what I'm asking y'all.
Ask the timeline.
Here's what I'm asking y'all. And I'm going to leave it at this. Our crew, all of you, as friends and colleagues, are great critical thinkers. Okay? When you know that it's gotten worse, and I'm just going to use this as an example, and then I'm going to show you another example. If you know it's gotten worse, and Glover has sent out the email, and he did, I think, to everybody that, whoa, it's all done, or this is what we got. It's coming. Okay, then if there are concerns and it's gotten worse, what I would expect you all to do
I got it.
is call him up and say, listen, site manager, it's gotten worse. What can we do? And then the site manager can send an email out to y'all and say, listen, I'm on it. I'm calling Glover, and I will let you all know. Okay? We had another situation where people were all, and I get this, were all concerned about the blackboard, and somebody was saying one thing about the shell, and somebody said something else about the shell, and it caused a huge furor. And I said, well, time out. Did anybody in that whole group say, time out? Let's go get our program chair and our dean in the same room at the same time and see what we know as a collective group. And then if you still have questions, call Marla.
I work here too.
Because that will save everybody gray hair, frustration, and you'll get the right answer. So here's the best story. Was it a week ago Friday? I've lost track of time. We're trying to get everybody admitted to this place, and the server that handled the queue to get people signed up crashed. Oh yeah. So this one and I are we had bad tummies. We doing the Pepto-Bismol, it was not a good situation. And again, folks at this place, it's the best place to work because we got good hearts, came out of the word work and went over to Campus Center and said, how can we help? And we had people with pieces of papers, just like in the old days, making lists of people to sign up, students when they came in to sign up. So we had organized, managed chaos, but it was managed. And people came through. So then we're talking to Glover, and Glover's sweating it because the server has crashed and burned. And what do? One of our colleagues went in. Have you all ever been to the server room up on Main? It is a piece of work, okay? There are wires and servers going in all directions. One of our colleagues went into the server room, looked at what was left of the server, and it was an HP server. And you can't put any other kind of guts in an HP server. Those guts have to be HP. So what our colleague did is he took an HP computer, took HP parts from other HP computers, and put it in what was left of this HP server, put all these cords from the burnout server to the computer, and made a new HP server.
And the queues came back on.
And the queues came back on.
Students were lined back up.
And it was a miracle.
Wow.
But where else would you find that kind of ingenuity and heart and saying, hey, how can we figure this out? I mean, talk about duct tape and baling wire, but it worked. I know, you guys do that all the time. But that's pretty darn cool. And that's what we have to continue to do and help each other do it. Now, are we going to have to buy a new server? We'll probably put it all in the cloud here. We're not going to buy a new server. But it got us through. And that's what makes my days really, really happy, when we get to have those kind of things happen. And I get to work with the greatest people on the face of the earth. So when those things happen, critical thinking, take care of it before we have rumors and all kinds of things, crazy stuff happening. Makes
We're
our
busy.
lives.
We don't have time for rumors. We're busy.
No, we're busy.
Doctor, you have a question on this. We have a lot of expertise in all of our technical programs. How come we can't utilize that expertise for the benefit of the college when it comes to HVAC and welding and all those?
You have to be certain, it comes,
Projects
it-
as
well, and some of that has to do with liability and state law. I'm with you. I mean, we could save a boatload of money, but state law requires us that we have to use outside businesses. We have to go through a very specific process on bidding that, all of it. So it's like having students work on things here on campus. We can't do that. A good example of that occurred back in the 70s, and this is what I've just been told. The whole ventilation system in the welding area, all of that was put in by students. That is illegal. We can't do that kind of thing.
We used to have our cars work on too.
What?
We used to have our cars work on.
Yeah, but we can't do that. That is now illegal. We can't do that. Okay?
Did it work? I wonder.
I don't know. Okay, other questions before you get to go to lunch and have a great Friday afternoon and a wonderful weekend? All right, my thanks to you all. We're doing great things, you guys. Should we tell them about SSCH? Yeah. Our SSCH is at 54,000. So we are above our projected forecast on
We
that.
needed 52 for that.
Yeah, we needed 52, we're at
And that was after
54.
the drop.
Now, that is not going to make us go woohoo and spend, like there's no tomorrow, but at least we're above. No, our enrollment is not up,
Our enrollment.
is not. What it says,
However, it means our
our students are taking more classes.
We have fewer part-time students, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a head count. What that really means is we dropped 600 students, and it just dented our SSCH. So we've got to go back as the dust settles and figure out what's going on, and so that just intuitively is, we're losing some part-time students. So we've got to figure out what's going on with our schedule and how we can help those students.
But again, I think, and Marlon, Tara, we've been talking about this, we did a great job recruiting and getting students in here. Tremendous job. What this is telling us too, and what what we know is now it's retention. We've got the recruiting angle done. We've got that solved.
We're getting there.
What we have to do is keep the students that we have and make sure they complete, graduate, get that certificate. That's our mission critical right now.
We've upped
Okay.
our marketing, we've upped our onboarding, we've learned a lot of things about drop, we've totally changed the way we do drop. So a lot of those things are in place as we move forward. But now we've got to focus on keeping and completing with the students we have now, and then we'll go where we need to go.
Okay? Other things? All right. Happy lunch. Thank you all.